The Stanford prison experiment was a study created by Philip Zimbardo that took place in an underground floor of the Stanford University building in August of 1971. In the experiment, a hallway was turned into a prison yard, and classrooms were emptied to act as holding cells and a solitary confinement chamber. 24 male college students were selected and evaluated, and they were randomly chosen to be either prisoners or prison guards. 18 of the 24 students were intended to be studied, with the other 6 men chosen as backups in the event of someone leaving the study early. It was originally intended to last 2 straight weeks. However, due to the brutality of the participants set on as prison guards, the experiment was ended after only 6 days. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, it was intended to measure the effect of role-playing, labeling, and social expectations on behavior over a period of 2 weeks. What was it like? Those chosen as prison guards were given nightsticks, guard uniforms, and sunglasses to uphold the presentation of authority and anonymity. They got to rotate shifts, eat, sleep, and smoke in peace. The prisoners, however, were stripped down naked and forced to wear what was exaggerated as a dress, as a way of forced feminization, along with women's nylon stockings on their heads and a padlock chained around their ankles. Prisoners were forced to complete rigorous physical exercise and responded to every demand of the guard without hesitance. As one would expect with the experiment ending so early, these rules were not adhered to. Who was involved? The main participants highlighted in this presentation are as follows: Philip Zimbardo himself and his team of colleagues and friends who helped him along the way, and prisoners 8612 and 819. When the students were chosen for the role of prisoners, they were stripped away from everything that makes them human and given a number to act as a name. For my research, I was not able to find the true names of either of these men. What subdisciplines of psychology are relevant to this movie? First up is personality. The focus of personality psychology, according to our textbooks, is to analyze enduring characteristics that people display over time and across circumstances. The circumstance point is especially relevant to this movie due to the rare and extreme circumstances these men were put through. Although many have tried, no one has ever been able to replicate the results of the original experiment. This could be partially due to the strict and specific circumstances of the original experiment. Yet, to analyze the behaviors and characteristics of both sets of men is one of the goals Zimbardo set out to achieve. Next up is social. The focus of social psychology, according to our textbook, is to explore how people are affected by others. This is especially prevalent in this movie due to the amount of pressure the guards are seen putting on the prisoners and how this pressure affects the mental health of the prisoners. Finally is cultural. The focus of cultural psychology, according to our textbook, is to study how people are influenced by the societal rules that dictate our behavior and culture. In this case, the societal rules are those set in place by the prison guards, and the culture is the fake prison setting. The main point of the experiment was to study how prisoners were affected by the words and actions of the prison guards, and to observe how the prisoners dealt with the situation they were placed in. All 3 of these subdisciplines of psychology are applicable to the scenarios within the Stanford prison experiment. What psychological theories are relevant to this movie? How do they explain the characters' behaviors? The first one is the behaviorist theory. This theory attempts to explain that behaviors are learned through how one interacts with their environment. This is relevant to the case of the Stanford prison experiment due to the different ways the prisoners interacted with the guards and how it led to some of them showing signs of both agoraphobia and panic disorder. These disorders were learned and developed throughout the experiment. Had the prisoners not responded to the way they were treated, or the guards not treated them as terribly in the first place, the mental state of the prisoners could have been widely different than it ended up being. The humanistic theory could also be included for the same aspects of what leads to the feelings or actions of people. How can the characters' behaviors be explained in psychological terms? Certain behaviors of the prisoners, such as their loss of hope, can be pinned to their loss of the circadian rhythm, amongst other things. Prisoners were told when and how long to sleep and when to eat. Without the use of the sun or their regular daily patterns, many of the prisoners could not figure out how long the experiment had been running. There's a specific scene in which 3 prisoners are in their assigned cell and they discuss what day of the experiment they were on. One believes the experiment has barely begun, whereas another believes that there is only a week left. The third man cannot comprehend how the others believe those 2 extremes due to the keeping of his circadian rhythm. Their behaviors can also be explained through their given gender roles. Various times throughout the movie, the prison guards refer to the prisoners as ladies. They even took it as far as referring to some of them as female camels and the others as male camels and having them act out sexual behaviors within their roles. This blatant use of feminization took away part of the prisoners' sense of self as men. What psychological disorder was illustrated in this film? What symptoms of mental illness did I see? The first one that I noticed was panic disorder, which can be described as sudden attacks of overwhelming terror, and also agoraphobia, which is described as fear of being in a situation from which one cannot escape. Both go hand in hand when it comes to this movie. Both are shown by two specific characters, Prisoner 8612 and Prisoner 819. Both prisoners show and say that they want to talk to a doctor and become agitated and panicked after being locked in the hole. They begin to scream and cry to be let go. While talking to Zimbardo and his team in an attempt to see a doctor, both are shown breaking down crying and in fear of their lack of control over the situation they've been put in. After returning to the group of prisoners, Prisoner 8612 even shouts in terror about how the experiment is real and the fact that it is a real prison in which none of them can escape. I believe that these presentations of mental illness in the movie were very realistic. Each actor took the role seriously and represented the instability of the mind wonderfully. My overall reaction to the movie was that it was an extremely faithful retelling of the events that happened in the original experiment. In some interviews, Philip Zimbardo even mentioned how the on-screen adaptation brought back his memories and feelings of guilt for the entire situation and everyone involved. The only points I can make about the validity of the mental illnesses or behavior in general is that they were represented both in the movie and in real life, or that they were fake. It is speculated by Zimbardo in the movie that certain panic behaviors were being acted out rather than felt in an attempt to leave the experiment early. In fact, the mental screening that was completed after the early ending of the real-life experiment came to prove that not only the prisoners but also the guards were over-exaggerating stereotyped roles as they believed that it was what they were supposed to do. Many stated that they would never act that harsh in real life, but that they were just putting on a show.